You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by In Play Live and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/InPlayLive to sign up and get in the game.
On the day of, will they actually put their money on the line and put it against someone like Mahomes, especially if they wholeheartedly believe the conspiracy theories around the refs helping them win and all of that kind of bullshit?
Are you going to bet against, like, if you think something's rigged, why would you bet against it? You know
But
what I mean?
people do.
I just don't understand. Like,
Yo, welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle, purifying the sports betting industry. I'm Shane. We've got Pace, and Gosu is here too for our Super Bowl episode. We'll get to the big game and break it all down, but there's also a historic win for NFL bettors that I'll tell you a little bit about, and Pace has a little story time regarding a sports book for us. Pace, we'll get to your story in a minute, but how are you guys doing? How's the last couple of weeks of sports betting been going for you? Are we suffering from football withdrawal?
Well, before we get there, John is really freaking sick right now, so we need to hear his voice so people can gauge the situation. Then we need to set an over-under on how long his voice lasts at this level on this episode, like if he can get through it or not. So, John, why don't you start by answering Shane's question?
yeah, I don't know. I've gotten a lot better. Spent too much time in Vegas. Speaking of the last couple weeks of betting, and so picked up a bad virus on the last day, and thankfully, it was able to make it home without any weird accidents happening on that long flight. So that was great. It's been going great. We've been crushing hockey, basketball. It's just it's a good time.
I hear a little grumble. I'm going to set the over-under at 47-29. So place your bets. Place your bets. Your bets. I like that you described your flight home as nothing weird, like no weird emergencies.
Like you expected something weird.
Yeah.
When the certain kind of illnesses you don't want to get on a plane with, you know what I mean?
Well, is there a worse situation to be in than on a plane? Like, especially like if you're in a middle or window seat where,
and I'm like a window seat guy. Like the window is like where I go. I like to just press myself against the wall and kind of go away from the world, So, but there's a miracle drug out there called Imodium AD. Definitely recommend that. So.
Sounds plus.
I'm with you though, John, on the Windows seat. It's a great, that's the spot where you could just like lean your head against it and just crash, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think sports bettors, we love picking up new tips and tricks. So thanks, John, for bringing one outside of the rink court or the field. We appreciate it. Anyways, Shane, betting wise, it's been spectacular. This last week for me was obviously super low volume because I was getting my place set up, which was, I got to credit John and Trampus and Matt for, covering for me when I really was not on stream to the degree that I typically am. But you was able to pop in, had the stream on a lot where like they'd be talking about something and I'd be like, and other times where I'd like come sprinting down the stairs, like almost crashing into a wall to get a bet in. So, but I mean, like it is a good lesson for people. Sometimes we do have these long days, and Saturdays right now are probably our long day with college basketball. NHL's running throughout the day. Obviously, NBA's on. It isn't like when college football's on, where, it really is pretty full on mentally for the entirety of the day. There's a lot of like, all right, guys, next slate's coming in 30 minutes, or like, all right, guys, we got a 45-minute break now. So, that can kind of be like a destroyer of your day. So like whether it's headphones or just having the stream on in the background, don't FOMO over any one specific call, but like do your thing. And if there's a really good opportunity, then go dive on it. And then obviously plan in advance and lock in for those busier times and know when they're coming.
Yeah. I actually kind of like it that way where like, for me, having the kids around and stuff like that, it sort of allows me to be like, okay, I know I'm going to go down to my setup at this time. I'll be down there for, 10 to 15 minutes. And then I can go about, doing stuff if we want to go for a walk or take them to the park or play outside in the snow or whatever it might be. You can go do that for half an hour, 40 minutes. Then, all right, go back to the spot, go make dinner. It's a nice sort of way to just kind of, if you're at home and you're not going out anywhere, it's a nice sort of, those breaks are really good for just going and doing things with family. I find anyway. Yeah. By the way, too, your new setup at your new place is coming along pretty nicely. It's looking good. I was following along on social media there, and you got a pretty cool sort of wraparound screen going on.
Yeah, I'm a total sucker for being at the will of what Costco has in the warehouse. And they had that, and it was like $500 off, and I was like, holy smokes, it's a match made in heaven. I actually thought it would be an amazing thing to do for a giveaway for someone in the group, and they're already gone. So,
too bad. Otherwise, the setup and the new place coming along nicely.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, I'm home and it's all set up and ready for an actual vacation once it's not minus 10 Celsius. So yeah,
cool. All right, let's move things along pace. You've got something you want to share regarding a sportsbook you've been dealing with for a little while now.
Yeah. So I kind of have it's actually, believe it or not, a positive story. You never know where these are going to go. But anyways, similar to my last story, scouring the internet for new sports books, and I came across Weiss, WEISS. Sometimes the S's are dollar signs. And
of course,
yeah. Played there, actually lost there, as I do advise people to do to an extent. And they set me up with a VIP host, and she was really diligent, like messaging me. And like she'd have her promos that she'd message me, but at the same time, there'd actually be some sincerity behind some of the messages outside of the copy pasted promo messages. And just as an example, like on my birthday, this gave me $1,000 USDC, which is like, or USDT, which is just like, that's just a nice thing to do for players. I've had people where they just throw money in your account and then they make you roll it over, and there's all these contingencies associated with it, and it hasn't worked out very well for me. They gave me, like, I could have withdrawn the $1,000 that day. So yeah, anyways, really good experience from that standpoint. Now, I loved the site. Really, really, really user friendly. Worked out kind of exactly how I wanted it to after some losses, and proceeded to get my account balance, north of $70,000.
Wow. Nice.
This is when I started to have limits applied to me, right? And that's where, whenever you're using a site that maybe you haven't used before, things can get a little bit like, there can be some anxiousness, like,
sure,
are they going to pay me, all that kind of stuff. Ironically, was the same odds provider as the story, the horror story that I told, a few episodes back. So
right,
that creates a little bit more, I guess, stress and anxiety. But they had really good reviews online, which is why I engaged with them in the first place. So that gave me the confidence to go forward. Anyways, when it came time for withdraw, obviously I had to do verification. The verification was quick and simple. I would say almost every document that I sent in, they had approved or asked for an adjustment within like 5 to 15 minutes, which again, with some of these books, it can be really, really shady and sketchy. So I get it all done, put my withdrawal through. It's pending for a little while. Obviously, that's frustrating. But then they said your VIP host can help you out. So this is when I found out the max withdrawal per week is 4,000 euros. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, hey, that's better than a lot of other sites you've dealt with.
No big deal. But they say your withdrawal is being processed. Rest assured, there's no issues on our end at all. It's gonna go through. In addition, we have an interesting offer. We want to introduce you to basically some high up at the sportsbook. He's going to reach out to you, or you can reach out to him. Here's your contact. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I fire him a note just to see what's going on. And this is where I got to give this sportsbook credit. He informs me that they have been watching my account. I can continue to play there and they've used my betting to help sharpen their lines.
No way. Whoa, they're adopting a little sharp book model.
They're not, though. They're not, but the approach was brilliant. It wasn't, we know who you are. It wasn't, get the hell out of here, we're not paying you or making it difficult to pay you. It was, hey man, we're paying you and we want to thank you. We're going to let you keep playing because you've already identified inefficiencies at our sportsbook.
Right.
And that's why, Shane, when I was saying I might have a story for you guys, I got to give a book. Think about the episode with Power Play and all the other stories we have. I got to give this book credit for taking that approach with me or with anyone else. Yeah.
I wonder how many other people they've done that with. How many other winners they've had to deal with and sort of have treated that way. That's pretty remarkable, especially from I'll call it a lesser known book. A smaller book that is taking that approach. So you can still play there, but I'm assuming you've got some kind of limits.
I've got some limits, but honestly, they're so reasonable.
Okay. So this is a book that you could keep using?
So my situation leading up to Kelowna, because I never placed a wager on them in the last week, was that I could still do 2 $1,000 spins per game.
Okay, so you can get $2,000 on a game.
USD as well. So totally reasonable. Anyways, the other reason I actually wanted to bring these guys up relates to the episode when we were talking about how valuable Pinnacle is as a sports book.
Right. It was a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, we were talking about moving money from your shady sports book over to Pinnacle. So the reason why I bring this up is because I looked into their bonuses at Weiss here. You can get $2,000 USDT is how they match you. Bonuses at Weiss, and the way their bonus structure works is you have to roll it over 45x, which John, I know you will. 45x is not it's not good. I was going to say John.
Not good.
I was going to say John. It can get a lot worse than that.
It can.
Right?
It could get a lot worse.
It'll be, Phil at Jazz Sports will be like, we're giving you 10 grand. You got to roll it over 100x. And it's like, okay, sweet. Yeah. But anyways, the reason why I bring that up is because if we rewind the tape back to the Pinnacle episode and you go over to a sports book like Weiss that's giving you this insane bonus, $2,000, you got to roll it over. You got to roll it over with $90,000 of play. Don't roll it over. Just lose it. Lose it all over to Pinnacle. It isn't a free bet. They put the cash in your account. You can't withdraw, but you can lose it, right? So sometimes I look at this kind of stuff and I go, if I wake up this morning and I have this $2,000 USDT bonus, right? Obviously, in this case, you have to deposit $2,000, right? So whatever the amount is, it could be $500 free dollars, whatever you're comfortable with. And I wake up in the morning and I go, I just made $2,000. Now I have to execute. So this has nothing to do with plus EV bets. This strictly has to do with moving money from one book to another and then getting it out of the other book, right? So I just made $2,000 as soon as I entered this code. I now need to move that money over to Pinnacle. And then I'm going to withdraw it from Pinnacle. Pinnacle gets the fee in the VIG. Using their arbitrage calculator, you can quickly do the math of the odds of how you're going to move it over, whether it's the parlay example I gave. John, I know maybe you can advise. Sometimes you'll find ARBs, things like that. I personally have been doing really, really well doing it with finding like a over 5.5 goals in hockey, under 6 goals in hockey. I did a Chiefs plus 9.5, Texans -9. That safety was a dream for me. Where I landed on 9. Like I've done some stuff like that to move the money over. And as soon as you hit like a flat number, which like hockey's a really good example because it isn't like it's a basketball going in a hoop where you were sitting on the middle for a millisecond before the next point was scored. It's hockey. Another goal needs to go in the net, right? That's not as easy as it sounds. So, great spot is those flat numbers in hockey. Anyways, when you then move the money over, yes, you lose the money at the one sports book. They win. You could I moved my money over and got it out and turned all that bonus money into cash. My rollovers cleared. I win, right? So you could be like, oh, well, Pinnacle loses, right? But they're so much focused on volume. They want that action. It balances their line, and they're the one getting the vig of the action that you put through them. So they win. If anyone disagrees with me, I'd love to hear it, but that's a win-win-win in my opinion. So anyways, I wanted to make sure I provided it because of the Super Bowl week. They have the promo code Super Bowl, and that's the least that I can do for them is tell people, go over, play there. This is how they treated me. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for in this industry. We bet. I want to make sure I get that right. And use promo code Super Bowl, and you get this sick bonus. Play it through if you want, or just go lose it. And if you lose it, they're going to have another bonus for you right away. That's the thing about sites like this. And then when you move the money over and cash it out, it's an infinite money glitch. You just keep printing money. Now, the downside, like what's the potential risk? I should bring that up. It's if you keep winning the money over to the other side. But as John says, you either roll it or you lose it.
You either roll it or lose it. Yeah, exactly. And, it sounds like for what we're doing at In Play Live, that it's a pretty valuable book. Like you were able to take significant advantage of it.
Yeah. I mean, anytime I get a balance to 70,000, I mean, that's
yeah.
Awesome.
You do it. Were you betting hockey, college hoops, football, all of the above?
Everything
Over there. Okay.
Yeah. I've been playing with them basically from November to February, to the end of January.
Okay. Wow. All right. So you sort of hit them up for everything, or on every sport.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll say
man.
don't think available in the United States. So if you're in the United States, maybe one day we'll get it. But
John's smiling over there. John was signing up. Hey.
Yeah. He was typing away. He's like,
I went to the website as you said it, and I was like, oh, I've been here before, so it's less familiar.
So not available in the US.
Yeah, well, John, you know those lines because you've been playing elsewhere on these lines. But yeah. Anyways, I thought they deserved a shout out. To 100% match bonus up to $2,000 if you enter code Super Bowl 45x roll. But roll it or lose it.
Right. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. Losing it over to Pinnacle sounds great, because then you can easily take your money out of Pinnacle pretty quickly if you want.
Well, I've been losing money over to. I ran into Dallas, helped me in with my setup in Kelowna. He's like, "How'd you get your Pinnacle balance so high?" I'm like, "I've been losing money into it like crazy from all these shady ass sports books that I'm using."
It's a great way to do it. I mean, hey, get it up over there. Why not?
Yeah.
And then you can pull the money out, no problem, no issues. It's great that way. Yeah. Cool. And you're right. Pinnacle doesn't lose. I was having a conversation with the former sportsbook director over at Circa. This guy, Metcalf. You guys can look forward to that interview next week. Fantastic guy, really interesting conversation. So stay tuned for that interview next week. But he was sort of just saying, like, if you're working at a sportsbook, you're a trader at a sportsbook, you're operating a book, you want action on both sides. You want to have it where you have nice balance on both sides, and that's exactly what Pinnacle's getting when you do something like that. So they're absolutely benefiting from it, 100%.
Yeah, and like to that note, I have that system running with 3 sports books right now, where now when we get into the equation of like plus EV betting and the stuff we do with In Play Live, so I would say that what I just said with those bonuses, especially if you have a sports book that keeps giving them and you keep losing to that sport in that sports book, you are basically printing money to an extent. You're getting, if you're getting 4-figure bonuses and you are successfully moving it over, yes, it costs you hundreds of dollars to move it over, but that's bonus money that is eating up those fees and costs. It's not your money that's being eaten up. You're not getting limited. So now take that one step further, right? Where you're using these shady sports books or whatever sports book. I shouldn't even say shady sports book, where you're losing through them and you just keep losing. So like I'm in a situation right now, as John knows, I keep my balance between about $3,000 and $10,000. When it hits about 10, I start moving a little bit to Pinnacle, and then try to get back down to 3. And I'm constantly going all in on this book. As soon as I go all in, they give me a 500% bonus to deposit again. and then, but they won't pay me, but they won't limit me.
So that you just keep losing it over.
Yeah. So I have a pending withdrawal from, I think from December 1st of $500. That was when my balance hit 25,000 US. So I'm like, they're not paying me, but I'm not creating a fuss about this. The last ones I created a fuss about, the last two I created a fuss about, they suspended and locked my account and I lost all my money. Like I've had over $60,000 stolen this football season. I'm no longer fussing. I'm actually using them more. I just keep my balances low and keep losing it back over to Pinnacle, and it's working just magically.
Wow. Huh. Yeah, nice hack there. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, like I know I just wanted to add, like, on the, we were talking about, potentially arbing or whatever, and like how you do the money. I would always, my philosophy on this is basically, if I know the book will pay me and my issue is rollover, I will always just try to find an arb, because I'll either lose all my money out of there to the other book while making a little bit of, pennies here and there, or I'll play through my rollover and then I can withdraw the money that way. Whereas these books that just simply will not pay, you definitely want to try to intentionally lose on that site, right? Like, arbing doesn't do you any good, because even if you played through your rollover, you're not going to get that money anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think to that note that John just brought up, like, don't fixate on finding an arb. Find something that's reasonable. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
An example, like when the Rams played the Eagles a couple weeks back now in the playoffs there, I ended up having -6.5 +7 money line +7. And the way that all shook out for me was really cheap to do. And then I wanted the money line and the plus to come through. If it landed on 7, I didn't move money, but I made a bunch of money. And when that happens, you further pay for a lot of fees. It didn't land on 7. They missed that PAT, and then it landed on 6. But that allowed John to cover, I think, his +6.5. So that was a good thing. But anyways, my point is that when you do something like that, when you structure it sort of that way, especially if you go like money line plus and you've covered it all off, that the balance at Pinnacle isn't going to be decimated because you took like a -400 money line as one of the bets. You have to lay a lot of juice to do that. If they lose, you get smoked, but I had the plus there as well. So in this example, they covered the spread and got the money line. So I moved a ton of money out of the book in that case. But had they have lost, I wouldn't have moved the money over that I wanted to, but I still would have kept the balance because of the plus side. So just factor that into the decisions that you're making. It is tricky. I have gone on some runs where I'm like, fuck, like Pinnacle's going down and this other book's going up, which is precisely what you don't want to happen. But if you stick with it and you're doing the right things, especially those parlay examples I gave a few weeks back, it will move over to Pinnacle.
Cool. Love it. Well, actionable advice out there for anybody who's struggling to get money out of a shady book that doesn't want to pay, which, a lot of our members have to deal with from time to time. So definitely great advice there. All right, moving on. John, you were saying that you just got back from Vegas. Were you in Vegas in December by chance? Or was it all just January?
I was in Vegas like the weekend before Christmas, like the weekend of that Army Navy game. I was in Vegas.
All right, so you could be among this group of bettors who have sort of accomplished a bit of a historic feat. So football bettors in Nevada beat the sports books out of $2.1 million in the month of December. It doesn't sound like a lot of money when you sort of add it all up, and all the sports bettors out there are football bettors in the state. But this is the first time that books in Nevada took a loss during the NFL regular season in the past 12 years. Took 12 years straight. They never had a losing month when it came to football. It happened in December in the state of Nevada. So most of that obviously likely in Vegas. This was an ESPN article that came out over the weekend that I saw, and I was like, wow, has it really been that long since people have been able to beat Vegas in football? It says football, so I'm assuming this is NFL and college. In fact, it is. So it's only the 13th time that the books have had a losing month on football, and the first time since November 2012. Isn't that wild? Unbelievable. And John, you would have been among that group out there betting on football. I'm assuming then you were able to collect a few wins in the month of December.
I think I did. I think December was pretty good. I mean, I think we've mentioned a couple of times in this podcast, like this is kind of an unprecedented year for public success on the spread and totals and all of that kind of stuff, like those main markets. So they're not really a surprise there for me with any of that. I think the books have been hurting this year. I think I've seen those market projections or the investor calls haven't gone very well for the DraftKings and the FanDuels of the world this year either since this football season. So
yeah, exactly. Just kind of give you the stats on that. So favorites in the month of December won 76.7% of the games outright. It's the highest winning percentage for the month since 2005 for the month of December. So just to give you a sense of how historic this favorites and public betting is right now. It's just an unbelievable year for it. Now, as they say, the house always wins. Well, sportsbooks in Nevada did win a net $15 million that month. They did it mostly off of basketball. So, people gave it a lot back betting on hoops in the month there. But I just thought it was a interesting little piece as we head into the Super Bowl and up to the Super Bowl and capping off this historic season of favorites and the public winning. So with that in mind, John, who is the public on for the Super Bowl? I feel like it's probably the Eagles since there's all this hate against the Chiefs. But in that same conversation that I referenced earlier with this guy, Metcalf, he was saying that the sports books, he thinks, and he's not behind the counter at the moment, so he's not 100% sure, but he thinks that the books need the Eagles to come through, that a lot of the public is probably on the Chiefs. So what are you seeing out there?
So I would just cite numbers from Action Network is where I'd take mine. I mean, they use a different database behind the scenes for their numbers, but the 30% of the tickets are on the Chiefs, and that's on the spread. It's closer to 50-50 on the money line. Of course, obviously the Eagles pay better on that side, so that would mean more liability on a payout for the books on the money line there. So the books, as far as single tickets on this game specifically, the books are definitely exposed on that Eagles side. You can actually see that. I think Pinnacle actually moved the line to -1 flat this morning or sometime last night, I believe. So, typically those are the Pinnacle circa, those are the market setters, right? So they're going to be the ones that are the first to give way when they just are probably expecting resistance on that Chiefs side at some point, and they're just not getting it. So I think the public, and honestly, a lot of the sharp bettors or people who, particularly people who like to model and bet based off specifically on models, a lot of them have the Eagles favored, even if it's just by a point in this game. So it's when the public and the sharp bettors align, and the books seem to be set on this line. It can really mean that there's a liability. So I do think the liability is really going to be the Eagles. I really don't think. I mean, I know there's obviously going to be a lot of Chiefs futures money or ticket volume from over the summer and stuff, right? But the thing with that is that unlike a couple of the past seasons, I don't think they ever got any longer than like +600 or something to win the Super Bowl, because they've always had the best record in the league, right?
Right.
So like, it's not like years past where they might have dropped a couple games earlier, just looked bad, and they got to like +1,000 or +1,200 or something. So even if they were to win and there were a lot of tickets, it's not like a massive payout where, the Commanders were 150 to 1 going into the season. Like if the Commanders were in this game, and even if there's a fraction of the tickets on those as there were on the Chiefs, like that would be a massive problem for the books, right? Because that would just be unexpected money that they would have to pay out when they thought it was just they're collecting. People are lighting money on fire,
right?
So from my standpoint, what I see is I think the books are really going to need the Chiefs, because I don't know about you, but like whenever I talked, especially when I was in Vegas, I talked to anybody. Everybody was like, "Oh, I'm betting the Eagles. I'm tired of this Chiefs team. They're going to lose." Like blah blah. blah. And almost everybody I talked to is that hasn't already bet it, because we know most people don't bet until like the 10 minutes before a game,
Sure.
right? Those people are all telling me they're going to bet the Eagles. Now, whether they chicken out at the last second or like, I can't bet against Mahomes, and they just don't do it, I don't know. But I really doubt that a lot of those people are just going to flip to the other side and actually bet the Chiefs. So I think the books are kind of just making a stand on this line. And I know this is kind of what I make the line too. And I know I mentioned that in our group chat that we had a couple weeks ago about this. I think before the last round, I made it about Chiefs -2, 2.5. I've since moved it to about 1.5. So I think the books are right on this one. I'm maybe off from the rest of the sharp community on this, but I think it's a good line, and I don't blame them for putting a line in the sand and just saying, if Mahomes loses, take my money.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I do think that we are absolutely seeing that sentiment out there, that anti-Chiefs, anti-Mahomes. The refs call everything in their favor. We're sort of just seeing that play out, and that kind of that sort of emotion towards the Chiefs is pretty strong, and that that anti-Chiefs emotion is very strong. Whereas I don't know that there's a lot of pro Eagles emotion necessarily, maybe from some of the members in IPL, but outside of IPL, I don't know that it's that strong, unless you're an Eagles fan. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see sort of what happens the day of and where that money does end up going. Yeah, John, I think you might be onto something there, thinking that, people are saying they're going to bet the Eagles, but on the day of, will they actually put their money on the line and put it against someone like Mahomes, especially if they wholeheartedly believe the conspiracy theories around the refs helping them win and all of that kind of bullshit.
Are you going to bet against, like, if you think something's rigged, why would you bet against it? You know
but
what I mean? Like,
do.
I just don't understand. Like,
right? I don't get it either, but people do. And it's like, what do
That is so good. It's like, hey, every single one of you guys that are out there talking all this shit about the NFL being rigged, I don't even disagree with you, but put your money on them then.
Yeah, like, right about it.
It's the most beautiful thing about it.
The NFL's rigged. Like, if what they're saying is true, you're simply setting it up to be further rigged so that you lose.
Yep. Yeah. If you think anything's rigged, like, especially in sports, because there's so many ways to bet on it, like, just go do it, make money on it. There's ways to do that. Like, so, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty simple, but I will say, if you do like the Eagles side, and I don't know, maybe I'm jumping ahead. We were going to discuss any of this stuff, but like, if you like the Eagles side, 2 years ago, I liked the Eagles side. And I just bet the first half, because my rationale with the Eagles is if the Eagles are down at halftime to the Chiefs, do I really think they can come back and win the game? Not really. Okay. But do I think they could hold on to a lead if it's significant enough? Potentially. So I would rather just bet the first half for slightly worse, like juice, like 5 cents worse, and just be done with it after that. And then not have to worry about whether the outcome itself is rigged or whether Mahomes just does his thing. Just give me if I think they're just such a better team, why not just bet the first half and just do it that way?
Well, John, there's a receiver on the Eagles named Johnny Wilson.
Yes.
And he's 23.0, so plus 2,200 for an anytime touchdown score. Have you bet on yourself?
I have not. I don't know how many times I've seen Johnny on the field this year.
Yeah, I don't know if Johnny's taken the field. That 23 looks like a bad number.
Johnny was a stud at he was a stud at Florida State last year, but I don't know what he just doesn't. I mean, it's hard to get on the field with that group. They've got so much talent out there, so I get it. But
let's talk about some of that stuff that and get into the props, because prop betting is probably what a lot of people are going to be looking at as they consider, and they might just ignore the sides altogether and just maybe load up on Saquon touchdowns, 2, 3, 4 Saquon touchdowns, or something like that. They might be looking at the kind of thing where it's 2 for Hurts and 2 for Saquon. Those are sort of getting pretty popular. And on the other side, they might be looking at Mahomes to run one in and throw one to Kelsey or something like that. Any props out there catching your eye? Anything, any sort of long shots that might have value? Anything out there?
I normally don't really bet a lot of props. I do. There are certain things that I think our group, we've talked. I know a couple of people have already given out a couple props. We've had some official calls. So won't go into those here, but if you want those, you can always join and play live. But there was one really interesting thing that was you're definitely going to bleed some juice potentially in this. But I did see where this was I don't know that the odds might be there because the line is moving towards the Eagles a little bit, but a couple days ago, you could still get the Eagles money line at plus 115. And then you could bet Mahomes not to be the MVP at minus 135. And it's 20 cents of juice, such that if the Chiefs won, but anyone but Mahomes was the MVP, you would win both bets, right? Or no. Or the only way you lost was that Mahomes was the MVP, right? You would lose your 20 cents of juice. So the other way you would win, you would win money. So and you would win both, if the Eagles won, right? So that was I thought that was a really interesting one. Maybe those odds have diverged since because the line is moving towards the Eagles, but I believe it was no, Mahomes was on FanDuel, I think, at minus 135, and then the Eagles money line, like I said, out there was plus 115. So that I thought was a really interesting angle to do it. And you could also just outline the Eagles to minus 1 flat, probably somewhere at plus 115, plus 120 still. And do it that way where you would, if you somehow pushed that, they won by 1, then you would still win the Mahomes not to be MVP bet. But that was a really interesting, I'm risking, maybe 0.2 units to win 2 units, right? So I'm getting 10 to 1 that one of these things it doesn't happen. So I kind of like that. But that was just a weird. That's where my brain goes with these kind of games where they start giving you yes/no markets on things when they normally only allow you the yes side. And there's a reason they normally only allow you the yes side, right?
Absolutely. Are we seeing any other yes/nos out there? How many yes/nos are you seeing out there? Because they are so rare these days.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there's things yes, no, will there be an octopus or whatever in the game? And I think it's this is not the time to do it because of Jalen Hurts or Saquon, right? And Sirianni goes for 2 to go up 10 because he's a savant and no one else can understand the inner workings of his mind. So I definitely wouldn't bet the no side in that, but there's stuff like that where weird bets that you can find the no side on.
Right. I like that you called him a savant. I'm questioning that. Is he really a savant or is he just kind of nuts? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is there any scenario in which the Eagles win the Super Bowl and Saquon is not the MVP? Or I think
100%.
Well, 100%. Yeah. I mean,
I think the hype on him to win MVP is completely unjustified. He's amazing. Yeah. I don't want to ever make it seem like I'm talking shit about Saquon Barkley. He's not the quarterback. Jalen Hurts is more likely to be the MVP than Saquon Barkley, in my opinion. It's based on this game. If they can stop the run, who's going to run the football? Well, Jalen Hurts will be running the football. We talk about player props. I'm not betting pregame. If Saquon Barkley is having a hard time busting through the line of scrimmage, I don't believe Jalen Hurts will have as hard of a time. His rushing yards are way lower than Saquon Barkley's. Obviously, they're 37.5 pregame, right? That's something I'm going to have my eyes on in this game. I'm not. Okay. I don't like proving my theories right or wrong pregame, but that will be something that I'm looking at in this football game. Now, the other part of it is if again, these are big ifs. If they jam the box and make it hard on Saquon and he isn't breaking through, Jalen Hurts is going to pass the football. Is he a super proficient passing quarterback like a Joe Burrow, for example? No, he's not. But does he have the weapons between Goddard, the greatest tight end of all time, Devonta Smith, who's an exceptional receiver, and AJ Brown, who's an elite receiver? Yes. And is AJ Brown or Devonta Smith going to pick up the MVP? I don't think so. So no. I think Hurts can easily win that MVP if the Eagles win. Easily.
See, the way I'm seeing it is that is can the Eagles win without Saquon being successful? So say the Chiefs do jam Bucks, can the Eagles actually get it done with Hurts having to be the guy? Because we haven't seen it.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
I get it, but yes.
Okay, that's your opinion. I got it. Yeah, you're on that side. I'm not sure I'm convinced. John, go ahead.
But it doesn't have to be on offense too, though. Like, what if somebody has 2 picks and one of them's a pick 6?
Yeah,
then they're the MVP. Defenders actually, it's really rare these days that they get it. But if there is like a 99-yard pick 6 or a scoop and score or something like that, like that, you're almost locked in unless somebody is having like just an unbelievable game, like a quarterback's throwing for 4 touchdowns or something like that, right? Those massive defensive plays will swing it in such a way that it makes it impossible for anybody else to get it. I think it's like that James Harrison one from the that Steelers champion Super Bowl against the Cardinals, right? That pick 6.
Yeah.
And then another one was like, I thought about 3 years ago, I had T Higgins at 50-1, and he had like the very first play of the second half in that Bengals Rams Super Bowl was like a 70-yard touchdown to T Higgins.
Right.
And he'd already had a touchdown before that. And I looked at the live odds and he was like minus 300 because they were winning the game. And he most certainly would have won it if they'd won the game. And, it really only takes like one big play or 1 or 2 big plays from any one player to get it if it's not a quarterback. So, and that, I think that just saying the same just goes for running back. If Saquon has 2 60-yard runs and one of them's for a touchdown and they win the game, maybe he probably gets it. But like, I would assume that's also part of the Chiefs' game plan is to not let that happen, right? So you're kind of betting against the incentive of the team as well.
Right. I think on that note, like separately of who you think can or can't do it, MVP wise, just keep an eye on those markets live. So I'll give you guys an example. It was the Niners Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes' first Super Bowl win. This was the one against Jimmy Garoppolo. They were down 10, I think, with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I can't tell you what the money line paid, but it wasn't great because by the time, and I'm referencing a very specific point in time, they were in range down 10 at this point that we called this on stream. And I think the money line was around like plus 150. It might have been plus 200, but Mahomes MVP was like plus 400. So just keep an eye on, and we won. Just keep an eye on MVP markets. I'll give you an example, one that I lost. This is pre-in-play live. Tom Brady was against the Rams. They won the game 13-3.
Oh, yeah, I remember that Super Bowl.
So I feel like MVP was wide open and up for grabs, and like we were scouring the markets trying to figure out where there was value. At that point, Edelman still paid well, but it wasn't exciting. I got Stephon Gilmore at 200-1 in that game. He got an interception after we bet it, and he had already had one in the game. And we were like, they have to give this MVP to a defender. They just have to, because this is such a defensive game. And then Julian Edelman, did what he did. Kind of, he was having a great game. His odds were already lower. He was 50-1 pregame. So anyways, that's an example of one where I feel like I had a tremendous wager in and it didn't come through. But just keep an eye on those live MVP markets. It's a rare opportunity where you have a correlated situation with a money line and then also with how that can be affected through a specific player. So the quarterback example is an obvious one. If it pays more than the money line and you go, if they win this game, he's winning MVP and you're getting better odds than the money line, just take the quarterback. Right. Just so keep an eye on that stuff.
Yeah. Love that. And John, I want to touch on something that you brought up, though, with the potential for a defensive player to come away with it. A lot of I've seen a few articles sort of touching on special teams in the Super Bowl and how well they've actually sort of performed. Big plays in the Super Bowl often happen on kick returns, punt returns, or pick six, or scoop and score fumble, and those are sort of game-changing plays. Might there be any value on looking at an anytime touchdown for a special teams, on one side or the other, or pays to your point, perhaps just keeping an eye on that mid-game?
Yeah, I think that's honestly not a bad idea, especially in the Super Bowl when everything's on the table, right? So they gave a punt returner, like if they're not normally somebody, or a kickoff returner, if they're not normally someone who gets touches on offense, they may in this game under a specific play. Like maybe there's a play they've got designed for this person, as like normally they'd be used as a decoy, but this time they're actually going to get the ball, it's like, so there's other ways for those people to score. So I think that's actually really good. And you just have to check your house rules and your books, right? Is it defensive special teams, like for the team that scores, or is it the specific player on a punt return or a kickoff return, right? I know some books like DraftKings changed theirs, from last year to this year, or maybe it's from 2 years ago to last year. I can't remember. It was recent. So make sure you know the house rules on that. And it was kind of in that same vein. I think it's interesting to look at maybe certain players to get like one catch maybe later in the game or something like that, especially like on the Chiefs. So, they like those little shovel passes, like that inside little shovel to Kelsey or something. Well, maybe that's like Noah Gray. So maybe Noah Gray is not playing very much in this game, or maybe he is playing, but he hasn't gotten a target or he hasn't gotten a catch. And it's like, all you need is that one catch in the second half, and he's plus 180 to get a catch or something. And it's, the Chiefs, even with the lead, they're going to throw those little underneath passes, those bubble screens, like the shovel passes, that kind of stuff. So little things like that you can look at. And then another prop that I meant to bring up when you asked about it, but I forgot, was I always bet the shortest touchdown in the game to be under 1.5 yards. It's always juicy, or it has gotten juicier in recent years. I think it's like minus 160 right now is the best you can find, but especially with the tush push on Philly, I could see, in the way teams get really conservative in big games like this, I could see Philly being like first and goal from the 4 and they just tush push 4 times or something stupid like that.
For sure, yeah.
And like you're just going to get that because they're going to get like 1 yard at a time, right? Or even the Chiefs, like, they run a bunch of little cute stuff, sometimes when they get down in the goal to go situations. So I always really like that bet. I think it's won like 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls. So I think even like the minus 160, up to like minus 180, I think is still really good on that bet. I like just like rooting for that bet.
I love that one. That makes a ton of sense on both sides of the ball, whether it's the Eagles or the Chiefs that end up there. I was just having a look there as we were talking about special teams, and it was actually 2 years ago, the last time these two teams met in the Super Bowl, Kadarius Toney running one back and getting stopped just short of the touchdown. So, there's a situation where, you wouldn't have got the special teams touchdown, but, if you were to take that, under 1.5 yards for a touchdown, it lined up perfectly for that. Other weird stuff out there. We can always bet on everything when it comes to the Super Bowl, whether it's the length of the national anthem, how many times, again, we'll probably have a Taylor Swift count out there. How many times do they show her? How many times do they show Roger Goodell? All sorts of weird things out there. Is there anything in the weird prop market that's been standing out to you at all?
I definitely always like to bet a lot on those, or like I don't bet a lot on those. I bet a lot of them. Like
a lot of
normally,
them. Okay.
Like I'm at a Super Bowl party or hosting a Super Bowl party or something, and it's kind of like the hour leading up to the game. I'll throw $100 in an account with a bunch of those markets and just start putting $5 here. Just like fun, fun stuff, like very trivial unit sizes for me, right? Like just total rec bets, something to cheer for. I do want to say, I think the Goodell number just keeps dropping. He just doesn't get shown as much anymore. So that's like, I guess if you want a sharp take
The
on that,
Goodell number is dropping.
Yeah, like it used to be a lot higher several years ago. It seems to go down every year. Maybe I'm wrong, but I always seem to bet the under, and I feel like I just feel like I keep winning that one. I definitely think Taylor would get shown more than Goodell if there's a head-to-head out there.
What is the number on Goodell?
It's normally 2, and we used to always be 2.5. And you'd always get 1 typically from him, but it's just not something that people want to see. People watching the Super Bowl aren't football fans.
Yeah,
that's
a good point.
They're just people, and they want to see Taylor Swift. They don't want to. They want to see Blake Lively. They want to learn about the defamation suit or whatever that's going on. There's things they care about that are more interesting than Roger Goodell. So I like the under on Goodell pretty much every year.
Well, the Super Bowl with these weird markets is it's a dream for some of these pregame bettors that have access to information, right? Like there'll be teams watching the Gatorade basket filled. There's obviously people that know who's coming out with Kendrick and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to see some pretty crazy line movement. If you can catch some of that line movement, usually it tells the truth with those markets. So you might be getting in at worse odds, and I wouldn't risk anything too crazy, but there's a reason why the lines move so much. So like whichever sports books like Pinnacle have these markets that adjust their lines really well with action. If you just keep that stuff open and watch it, you might be able to catch another book that hasn't moved yet. And usually the accuracy of that sharp movement is and harsh, aggressive line movement is tells the tale of the tape. I do think, Shane, just with your stuff about December there, I know I'm dating us back in this podcast. Oh, by the way, the over one for anyone betting on John's voice, dating us back to December. Just talking about the books losing. Now that to me is a real challenging month for a lot of sharp bettors. Yeah. They're typically going to do really poorly. I know December 23rd, we had one of our worst days in the history of In Play Live. That was an NFL Sunday. It was just a really tough, difficult day. That happens. We've rebounded from then significantly. But like if you zoom out December as a whole and you piece together the rest of the football season, I know we've talked about that a little bit last week there, Shane. But I think it does lend itself to betting live. And I think that from the standpoint of the Super Bowl itself, we talked about all this noise coming at us in the next couple of weeks and different opinions. And, it when you look at some of these player props, obviously, what color the Gatorade bath, things like that. I don't think the flow of the game is going to impact that too much unless you know which side, which color has, you know what I mean? Like if the Eagles are up, you want to hammer orange. And if the Chiefs are up, you want to hammer clear. But separately of that, when you look at these player props and then you take that example I just gave of December being really tough and then live betting being successful for us still, take these player props and all that information into the actual game itself. And it can really help you when you're looking at certain things. So to John's point about Noah Gray, I want to bring up Xavier Worthy. He doesn't get a lot of rushes, but he's probably going to get a rush. His rushing yards are set at 5.5. I don't care to bet that. He might not run the football. But if you have a book that offers him live and it's over 0.5 rushing yards at big plus money, and you're sitting there with like a quarter or more of the game left, it might be worth a crack. Teams tend to pull out their biggest tricks and their most deceiving stuff at the most desperate of times. So keep an eye on that. Another one I was looking at to keep an eye on, aside from the great Johnny Wilson, there was the receiving yards for all of the running backs. And the reason why I bring it up, obviously you're going to lose money if you bet those. Samaje Perine is a receiving weapon if the Chiefs are down. Kenneth Gainwell is the guy that receives passes for the Eagles if they're down quite a bit. Saquon's so important, but if they're down like 18, 21 points and the run isn't working, look for Gainwell to get passes in the air. Not down 3, not down 7, but we're talking it is not working with Saquon. The Eagles are way down. You're going to see a lot of number 14 out there. I think that's his number. So just go through the player prop menu before, create some scripts in your head. Don't bet on them. And then if you start to see them come into fruition, you can start deploying some money on some of these things. And that works. That has nothing to do with the Super Bowl. That works for football, period.
Yeah. I love that. Great advice there. I love the Xavier Worthy thinking about it like that. And it's at 5.5, but it'll go down to nothing, where you just need them to get 1 yard to win it. Stuff like that. And even that example you just painted there with Gainwell, we were talking about Jalen Hurts rushing, if they're way behind and they can't run it with Saquon, that's, Jalen Hurts rushing could be on the table. And you might even be getting a line significantly lower than what the pregame line is, and really sort of be able to get it there on a single scramble play where he wins it,
It's tough with him because he's such a prominent rushing quarterback, but yes, totally. Yeah.
It could be on the table. And these are things to watch for. Something that I can't stop seeing because the ads are everywhere, and it feels like it's been every Super Bowl now for the last so many years, but I think it's maybe only the third one, is the FanDuel kick of destiny. Rob Gronkowski's out. And
my God.
I think they've tapped the Manning brothers for this kick of destiny. I don't even know exactly if they're both kicking, who's kicking. I don't know what time it takes place, but I just keep seeing kick of destiny and some woman with like a Minnesota accent on the ads that just won't go away. And she keeps talking about destiny. I think it's like a town called Destiny. I don't know. Are you guys paying any attention to this at all? Pace, I know you're not. John, are you paying any attention at all? No.
Oh, I got to talk about this though, Shane. So the last 2 years, I actually kind of got excited for it, and it was like this big deal because we couldn't stop hearing about it.
Yeah,
and I think year one, no one saw it. No one saw it.
Yeah, I had to go back and like look for it.
And then year two, I know I saw it, but then we found out that one of the 2 years or both years were rigged. Like year one, he intentionally missed. And I don't know if that was to create year two. But I am sorry, if you have any level of athleticism, you're probably going to make that. How long's the kick?
Ooh, I don't know. It's what, 25 yards? I think it's like a chip shot. I don't think it's like something
you're
long.
You're just going to make that kick. So like I think it's rigged, and
I don't know the Mannings though, the level of any sort of athleticism. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can see Peyton Manning like penguin shuffle up to the ball, and
Shane, I thought you were talking about Kenny's kick at the event coming up this year. So
that is one I want to bet on.
We did a kick of destiny at our In-Play Live event, but we didn't know that the person not only could it not be made, it wasn't possible. He couldn't kick the ball high enough to get above the upright. And I'm the sucker that said, since I'm place holding and he's kicking, we have to offer the market for it will be made. So Kenny and I put up like a couple $1,000s of will this kick be made? Yes. We made it super. We made our side pay quite a bit. So there's a lot. You had to take a lot of chalk or a lot of juice on the make side, but it wasn't possible. It was not possible.
It wasn't. I remember that quite clearly. I think the make side or sorry, the miss side paid like 1.6. Or something like that.
You hammer it, Shane?
Yeah, I got it. And I know John got it too, because John and I had the scouting report. We were out there, so we knew what was going to happen.
Insider information.
Yeah. But again, like this is like we don't even know who's kicking. I'm surprised. I'm like, did we just seriously bring this kick? Anyways, the kick of destiny is like not even paid attention to. I don't know if people will even notice that it happens.
Yeah, I think hopefully this is the last year of it, because I'm just sick of the ads. That's me anyway. All right, guys. Well, I think that's just about it. Any last thoughts about the Super Bowl before we say goodbye and move on?
Enjoy the game. If you're going to a party, don't drink and drive. When it comes to sports betting and gambling, there's a lot of hype around this day. Bet it responsibly, or don't bet it at all. Just go have fun and celebrate the game of football. And just enjoy it.
Yeah. Bonuses to be had. Get those bonuses.
Yeah.
We were talking about bonuses earlier in the show. There's tons of bonuses floating out there if you're interested in those. John, any final words?
Well, I guess I would say like what Pace just said. It's bet it responsibly because we have this saying that we bring up from time to time on our streams that if this weren't the only game on, I probably wouldn't even be looking at it. And so if this game turns into one of those games that if it weren't the only game on, you wouldn't be looking at it, you don't have to bet anything on it. You can just watch it.
There you go.
Like you don't have to bet it. A lot of people have to bet it. Bet $1 on it, root your dollar in.
There you go. Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wings, the pizza, and all the other good stuff there. Love it. All right, guys. Well, Pace, John, sports bettors around the world. Till next week, keep eating those bucks.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.